Hello everyone, it's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel, tap the notification bell, like this video for me. That helps me to keep making videos. I'd appreciate it majorly. So there were two attacks on two different tankers in the Gulf of Oman, which is the massive body of water on one side of the Straits of Hormuz, Persian Gulf on the other, Iran on one side, I guess Saudi Arabia and other countries, UAE. I'm not exactly sure on the other side. But they were massive, fairly significant attacks. Initially, I think Iran media had reported that one of the vessels had sunk, but the Norwegian company whose vessel it is, one of the vessels, disputes that claim, and I don't believe it has. It's still afloat. And actually, they were two different types of attacks, as the reports go. One vessel hit an underwater mine, creating a massive explosion. The other vessel was hit with some kind of projectile, which they're calling a torpedo. And that vessel actually suffered three explosions. So I don't know if it was one torpedo or more than one, even though it's being reported sort of as one. And the one that suffered an attack with the projectile is the MT Front Altair, and that is the Norwegian vessel, which is actually pictured, right there. There's some pretty remarkable footage of it. There's a little bit of video as well. That is the MT Front Air, and yeah, it's pretty crazy to say the least. Things have been escalating in the region. The United States sent an aircraft carrier strike group to the region, as well as I think B-52 bombers. And then there was the previous attack on 4 vessels about a month ago, I think. In the same region. Not quite as dramatic or big as these attacks, but things are getting are ratcheting up, and the Iranian foreign minister definitely says suspicious doesn't begin to describe this, being that I'm not sure, this is like the third time I've tried to do this video. The Prime Minister of Japan is in Tehran right now. I learned from reading reports that Japan gets a significant amount of its oil from Iran, which has been strained because of the increased sanctions imposed by the United States when we pulled out of the nuclear deal that the previous administration had negotiated. So the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, is actually meeting with the Supreme Leader in Tehran right now when the attacks took place. It's the first time that the Prime Minister of Iran has actually been in Tehran since the 1979 revolution, despite the fact that they get a ton of oil from that country. And I assume they're meeting over economic reasons as well as diplomatic ones. But being that it's a pretty unique visit for the Prime Minister, that the attacks took place right at that moment is highly unusual for sure. Like I said, the attacks are pretty extensive, man. I think that's the Norwegian tanker. One is owned by a Norwegian company. The other one is owned by a Japanese company. But as I understand it, the cargo in both vessels is owned, is destined for Japan or owned by Japan-related interests. And it's expensive cargo. I saw in one report that one of the vessels is carrying about 30. It's always expensive cargo. But it's carrying $30 million worth of some substance, I believe methane. There is some footage that's the Norwegian tanker, and I'll show you that in a second. We'll mess up my audio and continue to play if I play it now. But and in this instance, these attacks, this time the vessels were much closer to the border of Iran. I think there's a variety of theories going on here. I know that it was recently reported actually Congress is contesting. I'll go through some of the details of this as quickly as possible. But I know Congress is contesting a huge arms sale from the administration, the Trump administration, or Democrats in Congress, or maybe Republicans, some Republicans too. recently, I think an $8.1 billion arms deal to the Saudis that the Trump administration basically signed some kind of executive order or declared some kind of emergency in order to do it and bypass Congress. And actually, in that, and it disturbed me a little bit because part of that arms deal, at least a portion of the manufacturing, I think the final stages of the manufacturing of the arms would be done actually in the country of Saudi Arabia, where we'd be transferring pretty highly sensitive weapons technology into the hands of the Saudis, which is, I don't know. It didn't seem. It gave me pause when I read it, and I was a little shocked to learn that the Trump administration was pushing for it. But one of the justifications for this arms deal and for bypassing Congress, the Trump administration used the escalated tension and the recent threat from Iran to justify that. And there's other implications in the region naturally who have been sort of cozying up to the Saudis. Israel definitely is in the picture for sure. So there's that as well. But I think another theory may be that there's elements within Iran that are actually trying to stoke intervention by the United States, try to create a war to try to topple the current regime, and that this could actually be coming from elements within Iran. Trying to make it look like the current regime is provoking the United States and start a war. To try to, like I said, to try to topple, to get the United States to attack and invade and cause to topple the current regime. So some of the details on what happened very quickly. So the MT Front Air was one of the two ships hit in a pair of blasts which left the Middle East on high alert. The tanker suffered 3 explosions and caught fire after a suspected torpedo attack, although its Norwegian owner had denied Iranian claims that the vessel had sunk. The Altair and the other ship, the Japanese-owned Kokuka Courageous, were evacuated after sending distress signals picked up by the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet, with 44 sailors rescued. Britain has urged extreme caution amid the high tensions in the Middle East, weeks after Saudi tankers were attacked in a mysterious act of sabotage off the UAE coast, which Washington believes was the work of Iran. Tehran has said it's suspicious about the timing of the explosion, which came as Japanese leader Shinzo Abe met Iran's supreme leader today in an effort to defuse the crisis. Mr. Abe had warned yesterday that the tense Middle East standoff, which has seen furious exchanges between America and Iran, could lead to an accidental war. So, of the attack, it says that the Taiwanese oil refiner, which chartered the Marshall Island flag MT Front Altair, said the ship was suspected of being hit by a torpedo. The Marshall Islands are an associate state of the United States. Reports said that the Front Altair, traveling from Qatar to Taiwan, had suffered 3 explosions and caught fire after a surface attack. Iranian news agency IRNA claimed the ship had sunk, but Norwegian owner Frontline insisted it still afloat. Its crew of 23 were picked up by nearby vessel Hyundai, Dubai. The Altair had been loaded at a port in the Gulf with a petroleum product known as naphtha. I have no idea what that is. Was on its way to the Far East. Altair's cargo is worth more than $30 million. Meanwhile, a shipping broker said a Panama flag, Kokuka, had suffered an explosion after an outside attack which may have involved a magnetic mine. The company operating the ship, which is heading to Singapore, said the attack had caused damage to the ship's hull starboard side. The Kokuka's 21 crew were picked up by nearby vessel, the nearby vessel Coastal Ace. One of the crew members was slightly injured. Iran said its search and rescue teams had picked up 44 sailors from the 2 ships and taken them to port of Jask. Norway has advised its ships to stay well clear of Iranian waters until further notice. It's totally crazy, man. It really is. I don't know if these are pictures. I think these are pictures from the same one, the Altair. And we haven't seen, I'm not positive though. It's difficult to tell. It doesn't say in these. I mean, this says another image released by Iran showed smoke pouring from one of the ships, which were said to have been targeted by torpedoes and magnetic mines. Those are two different ships, I believe, right there. So they are, because of this. This is distinctly different than that. This picture released by Iran's state broadcasters showed one of the oil tankers on fire in the Gulf of Oman today after a suspected attack. One of the tankers burns at sea in a pair of blasts. Iran calls suspicious because Japanese Prime Minister is visiting today. Let's see. That's the Norwegian owned. That's the Altair. Just don't know. Here's the footage. It's pretty unreal. All right, well, that's the story there for now. We'll see where this goes. It's definitely getting real. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.